When the outdated tactics get left behind, it's time we stop. Marketers look around when your ranking's going down.
We don't have, that's always been the case. I'm watching these horror stories of businesses like losing, 60, 70, 80% of their traffic overnight. And they have all this inventory in their warehouse and they have all these staff they have to pay payroll for. That is hard. That's hard to listen to read, and to like get phone calls about and be like, well, I can't do anything. I don't work at Google. Even if I did work at Google, there's nothing somebody at Google can necessarily do to press a button to make you recover. And I get it. At the same time, Google wants the best search results and they have to continue to evolve and get better, or else, Bing or DuckDuckGo or other search engines will come and, eat them. But at the same time, it's hard to hear these horror stories of businesses really collapsing overnight because of these algorithm updates.
It's, when someone comes and says, hey, we've been affected by this update, let's say it's a core update, it's not like the old days where we could, pull out the calendar, be like, all right, this was a panda or a penguin or an above the fold, and here's the problem. And, you need better backlinks, or you need better content, or you got too many ads, or you're above the fold, whatever the issue was, we would know. And now everything is quite blurred. And then you get people often like in the forums where they're like, I own one website and it went down, and it must be because I recently, I don't know, put a picture above the fold. And someone else would be like, I own one website and I have, something else. So it's like all these people making guesses based on their one website of what it could be. And that leads me, I guess, to a question, which is, Barry, I know you're not officially an SEO, or you don't want to say you're an SEO, but you do have some SEO knowledge. What if someone came to you and said, hey, my site was affected by the latest core update? I guess there could be, they may say, is it my fault? Like, is my site just not good, or is it something? And if they said, why, Barry, why was my site affected by this core update? Would you be able to, if you wanted to analyze it and be like, it's because your keyword density is too low, or, something like that?
So one is, you're right. It's not like, Panda was about this issue, Penguin was about that issue. Earlier updates, you can very pinpoint it was about that industry or these types of websites or these classifications of SEO strategies. It doesn't work that way anymore. And it's frustrating because, I think like Gabe says, and it's, you have to throw the kitchen sink at it. Everything has to be looked at and everything has to be worked on. And if somebody complains to me about it and they say, they don't usually blame themselves. It's not like, what did I do wrong? It's never what did I do wrong. It's more about what did Google do wrong? And that's not a good strategy. It's a better strategy to say, what did I do wrong? And then maybe have third parties look at your website, like an SEO team, or maybe do, survey your current readership and see what they like or dislike about your website. And at the same time, what do I tell people? I gladly say, I don't do SEO. I don't work at Google. I can't help you in any which way. I just write about it. I talk the talk, but I don't walk the walk. So hire somebody like Jim Boykin and Internet Marketing Ninjas instead, because I'm lucky. That's the beauty of what I do, is I don't have to actually do the work. I just listen to what the community is saying and I report on
it. Yeah, and I guess another thing I keep in mind is I always, any site, whether they came to us before an update or after an update, if they said, hey, can you help, or I need to improve the website, I think it's all kind of the same laundry list of everything. How's this? How's this? How's this? How's this? And if someone's hit and we say, they want to know, like, why were we hit? It's like, well, it could be one of 1,000 things. Here's all the things that could be improved across the website, and ideally improve everything that you can, and Google will recalculate, in a sense, your site over time and give it new scores, and ideally try and make everything you can better. But I think these days it's hard to be like, to nail down one thing. I often see people write reasons why, or, there's always a list of the winners and the losers. And so, and I'm guilty as well of being like, well, what do all the winners have in common and what do the losers have in common? And it's never really a big enough list to really get a feel for it. And, I guess there's causation and correlation and all sorts of other stuff. But I guess to me, it's almost like the moral and everything is the same. It's like whether a site's been hit or not, go from A to Z through every little thing that you can look at and be like, how can we make every little thing better? What are the competitors doing? Whether you've been hit or not. Because if you're hit, it could be any one of those,
And it's also a funny question for many clients. Like when we suggest some of those many little things, they would always ask, do you think that really impacts the search results? Do you think that would really help? And like, it might, it should, but it needs to be done.
I guess there's kind of the neat thing about being through so many past updates. The advantage of having the years of experience is you kind of get an idea for every little piece that Google's looking for. It's like, it could be one of all these things.
Right. So do it all and hopefully the best, the outcome. I don't know how you guys, honestly, I don't know how you guys saw SEO. That's another reason I don't do SEO is because we could build something to spec. I need to do X, Y, and Z, build it for you. Here it is. This is what you asked for. Please pay up. With SEO, you don't fully control everything. And that makes it tough. And at the same time, I write about it. So I don't want my writing to actually influence it. Like if I have a strategy of, I don't know, let's say I had an SEO company and I was all in on this one strategy and then Google said that strategy is no longer allowed or whatever. I've seen blogs cover it in a way that say, well, Google says this is not allowed, but if you do it this way, then it is allowed.
Yeah.
And I don't want that to bias what I write at some point.
Well, I think we got really, this is really funny to say. I think we got really lucky in 2008 when we got penalized by Google for buying links.
Right.
At the time, I certainly did not feel lucky, but it forced us to, how can you get other sites to mention your site without giving them anything? And at the time, I thought that's an impossible task. And I guess, over time, we learned what are the right things to write or to create that can get a buzz and get people talking about it. And then ideally some of those will link to it, but, through no influence of, here's money or here's anything, and
right.
It really stunk in 2008 when, Google basically said, Jim, you shouldn't do that anymore.
Right. And I've been through penalties. I've been hit by I used to sell links on the site. I used to label them as sponsored. That's before the no follow attribute was out. And then Google came out with this no follow attribute. And they're like, now you got to stick the no follow attribute on. And I'm like, I'm stubborn. No. Why should I stick a no follow attribute on? It's because I have the sponsor label on. That's what you told us to do originally. And eventually they penalized my site. I was stubborn for a couple more years later after that. And then eventually, you know what? I should put it on there. I should put the no follow on there because it's pretty much standard now in the SEO space that you need those on sponsor links. And then I got hit by Panda once or twice, I think. Probably got hit by core updates as well. I actually enjoy getting hit by these things because it doesn't hurt me financially to get hit by it. And it doesn't have that much of an impact on my site because mine's mostly news traffic. And I may see a 5% drop or a 10% drop overall, but I have these spikes of news stories that come up and I have a very, very loyal readership that subscribes to the content in other ways. And so forth. I remember I got hit once by a Panda update and I'm like, Joe, what do I do? He's like, maybe you should ask your readers what you should do. I'm like, okay. So I put a Google consumer survey on my website to ask readers, what do you think of it? And they loved the site. Nobody really, for the most part, everybody loved everything about it. Maybe, there was pretty much no negative stuff. So I published the results publicly on the site, export the, fraud data, posted it. And, the next Panda update came out and I was all recovered again. I mean, it's just interesting. It's like Google sometimes gets it right. Google sometimes gets it wrong. And there's going to be, collateral damage with any of these types of updates. And you see that from time to time and it happens.
Yeah. I remember, I don't know, it was several years ago, but we had two clients hit on the same exact day. And so we ended up with the one client, we ended up throwing everything, against the wall. We ended up moving things to different URLs, to a subdomain, changing all the content, redesigning. Like we went through everything for about 3 years. And the other site, we did nothing to. And the same exact day, both sites kind of came back. The other site was now kind of a Frankenstein, so to speak, and it kind of came up almost back where it used to be, and the other site kind of came back on top for everything that it was. And it's like, I think sometimes Google does turn levers, and some sites get hurt when, in essence, they haven't done anything wrong. And it's hard to tell clients, you may not have done anything specifically wrong. But again, it's, let's look at everything that can be made better.
Right. And nobody can ever say they're the best at any point. It's always room to do better. And that's what you tell people. It's like, there's always room for improvement.
I almost stopped looking for patterns. It's, I guess it's still just make the site better every way possible. It's almost the same advice. I think we have a page on the site that says, like, have you been hit by a penalty? And if so, or an algorithm or anything, like, has your site gone down in rankings? We have this whole list of everything we do for it. And it's the same list, honestly, as if you weren't hit. Here's all the things we're going to look at to look for improvements. All right, you've been hit. Yeah. I wish we looked at these last week or last month or last year, but let's look at everything.
Stock marketers look around when